Welcome back to the Brothers Mahoney. With you, as always, is Michael,
And I am James.
and today we are discussing part 1 of the two-part finale to this season, season 14, being The Legend of Ruby Sunday. Naturally, this episode aired June 15th/14th for us, Disney Plus. And plot-wise, I'll just say I wrote this plot, so if the plot sucks, come at me, bruh. The Doctor and Ruby go to unit headquarters with two goals in mind. One, to figure out who the mysterious woman is that they keep running into, and two, to figure out who Ruby's mother is, and the one who waits is waiting no longer. It's mysterious and vague, and it brings with it all types of pleasures. And before we get into the whole of the plot and the various points we want to touch on, I wanted to sort of go through the cast, mainly because this episode, being part 1 of a season finale, has quite a few faces in it, many of which we've seen before. So I just wanted to run through them. Naturally, we have Millie Gibson and Ncuti Gatwa as Ruby and the Doctor. Gemma Rodgrave is back as Kate Lethbridge Stewart. Yasmin Finney returns as Rose, who we've not seen since... I don't even know, was she in The Giggle?
If she was in the giggle, I don't remember. Wait, she must have been at the giggle near the end. Yeah, the scene where they were eating.
Oh, you're right, yeah. So, I mean, we haven't really seen her since the Star Beast. Naturally, we also have Bonnie Langford, who is right now employed at UNIT, playing Mal, of course. A new character, I don't have his last name, but it's a guy named Morris. He's like I think a 13-year-old kid who's like the scientific advisor, something like that, who apparently took, from what we can tell, he perhaps took the place of Ruth, the woman in the wheelchair, because she didn't pop up as she wasn't mentioned here, but we have Morris instead.
I wasn't very impressed with Ruth on the whole. But I have to say, I liked her a hell of a lot more than Morris. Morris just mostly annoyed me.
Yeah.
He's this kid genius. Why is he 13, 14? I forget how old he was. Yes, he's out of graduated college. Yes, he's a genius. Yes, UNIT wouldn't hire him if he couldn't do the work. I understand that. But every time I look at it, it reminds me of young Sheldon. And I have such a distaste for that type of trope in media. And I do hate to see it here. So, whatever issues there were with Ruth, I'll take Ruth back in a heartbeat. Because I thought there was actually a lot of potential with her.
Yeah, and we also have both Susan Trist and Anita Dobson back. Naturally, Susan Trist is a woman we've seen in every episode this season, and we find out more about her. Anita Dobson plays Mrs. Flood, and she's only appeared sort of once this season. I'm sorry. Yeah, no, it has just been once-ish, half-ish in a way. But she comes back, and we finally get... We don't really learn more about her, but that's one of the things we touch on. And yeah, it's pretty full-fledged cast. And this episode does seem at times sort of frantic.
Yeah, no, it was very frantic. And before we get to the frantic nature of it, I just wanted to quickly point out, and this is how much the character I didn't laugh because I literally forgot her name. Ruth is the actress who plays her, which I just looked up because it wasn't sure if Ruth was the right name. The name of the character is Sorley Ann Bingham, apparently. I didn't remember the name in the slightest, so I guess that happens, but either way, I still liked her more than Morris. Yeah, no, on to what Michael was saying. This episode actually in a lot of ways reminded me, especially the first, I would say, 20-25 minutes. On the whole, I actually wasn't feeling it that much until we got to the time window scene, which I think was fascinating on a lot of conceptual levels. It reminded me a lot of The Giggle, because it, to me, felt kind of very messy and kind of all over the place, just because there's so many moving pieces at once. Also, I think it was extremely ill-conceived for them to give a damn about Ruby's mother right at that moment, or at that time, right as they were about to uncover the mystery or try to uncover the mystery of Susan Triad. They were right there, and they decided to take a detour into looking into Ruby's past. Now, I guess I kind of get it. I mean, they had the time, I guess, but still, that to me did not seem like a good idea. Although I wonder if they had talked to Susan Triad without doing any of the stuff about Ruby's past, what do you think would have changed? Because at the end, they did kind of intertwine.
Yeah, I wonder if it would have jump-started things. Because I highly doubt Susan would have been, quote unquote, allowed to even really discuss the dreams. I mean, because she was pressed for time. She had to go give I think there was an address to the Yuan, was it?
Yeah,
But
there's a yuan speech about some free upgrade.
yeah,
Not
so
very
so,
specific, this
so the
upgrade.
doctor, yeah, if the doctor had come up to her, if they had more time, maybe she would have been able to, quote unquote, talk to him. But it probably just would have moved things quicker. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I'm thinking about what the result will be, and I would have to put more consideration into this. I think the ending will default last chance because at this point of the ending, at the unit base, they were literally at arms around the TARDIS because they knew there was something dangerous. Hypothetically, if they had it done that excursion with the time window, they would have known anything was dangerous about the TARDIS. So they would have all been fully focused on the issue of Susan Triad. So I guess it would have made it a less exciting ending to the episode, to the first part. But
It's also worth mentioning that with Susan Triad, the doctor sort of almost immediately suspects that Susan Triad, who again is this woman that they sort of been seeing throughout all their adventures, both on screen and off screen, apparently. But the doctor immediately seems to suspect that it's his granddaughter, Susan, actually from way back in the day, and that's after seeing how what was it like Triad technology, how the company sort of powers out TARDIS.
us Triad, if you
Yeah,
want. Yeah, see, apparently, what, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, officially changed the name of the company from Triad to us Triad, which is an anagram of the word TARDIS. And Unit actually acting like fanboys immediately spotted that, and they're kind of keeping their eye on her anyway. But that was something that really made them interested. Honestly, the beginning, like I said, it was very frantic, and I know the hell of me. What, her name's Susan, so the doctor's automatically thinking, and half the costume seems to automatically be thinking, it must be your granddaughter Susan. Like, what? Now, granted, I know that Kate didn't know about the granddaughter. She has a very nice conversation with the doctor later on in the episode. That of all the stories the Brigadier told her about her father, of course, about his time with the doctor, he never once mentioned that the doctor had a granddaughter. And that's when he got some boasted about having a granddaughter before a son or something, or before having children, which I think contradicts something literally said earlier this season. So I'm going to disregard that as garbage until it actually comes up later. But yeah, so that was a nice scene. But yeah, I know I didn't like in the slightest how always an anagram of TARDIS. Ergo, this person who chooses the name Susan must just be Susan. It didn't seem to make really much sense to me. It seemed to be really jumping the gun.
yeah. I'm not sure why the doctor immediately went that way. Like, I guess maybe Susan's been on his mind. Well, even is she? Like,
Well, we know that, to be fair, we know that Susan's been on his mind in the sense that he did reminisce about her way back when in the Davos Code. Now, granted, I don't think it's happened since, but. And honestly, now that we've seen almost all of these episodes for this season, the first two episodes feel really fucking out of place with the other six, at least to me. Just as a small side note.
Yeah, and it'll probably be interesting to rewatch too. And like I said early on, there's sort of a decent amount going on here. There's a lot of phases. It feels sort of frantic. And actually, before we touch on, like, I guess you could say the quote unquote big reveal, one of the things I've been most interested about has been the whole Mrs. Flood thing.
Which is funny because, again, she's only shown up in kind of just one episode this entire season. But they don't waste any time in getting people interested in remembering her again. Keep in mind, she appeared in the Church on Ruby Road, and then at the end, she had her whole, what, has she not seen a TARDIS before? Literally saying it to the camera, and maybe even winking. I don't remember if she winks or not. I think she does. Then we didn't see her again until 73 Yards, which was a rewritten timeline anyway, and sadly that was not referenced in this. It wasn't even referenced that Ruby had any residue knowledge of Kate, and I was hoping for something like that, maybe next episode. And then we see her in this episode, and the second that the family is out the door, she starts acting all ominously, denies that poor woman her tea again. It's just not been her time for tea recently. And then it's hard to tell if she's being malicious or if some people think this is going to end up being Susan. I don't know. I'd prefer it not to be Susan because, well, one, Carol Ann Ford is still alive. So you can't recast her with another old woman.
Yeah, although I would say it's possible it's not necessarily a recast. It could be that they might do a flashback where this is Susan, and it's just it's one of her generations. So it could maybe do a flashback using Carol Ann Ford, turning into maybe Mrs. Flood.
And
it's just one possible solution.
That would be on the whole fine with me, but there's something about that I don't really like. And if people remember, and it helps that Mrs. Flood has appeared so little because you can pinpoint this down exactly. Mrs. Flood did have one interaction with the Doctor after she became apparently aware of TARDISes. Because, of course, in the first half of the Church on Ruby Road, she just seemed like a normal person who was actually kind of snarky and kind of amusing. But at the end of that is when she seemed more aware of things like the TARDIS. And she had a conversation, a very small one, but she talked to the Doctor about taking Ruby, or if it was safe for the Doctor to take Ruby with him. And she kind of convinced him, yeah, it's okay, take Ruby. And so the Doctor says in this episode, oh, he'd know if Susan tried with Susan, if he just talked to her, if he just looked in her eyes. But if Mrs. Flood turns out to have been Susan, obviously that's not fucking true. So that's my one big thing about, I personally do not want Mrs. Flood to be Susan unless they explain that and they just flat out say, oh, the Doctor's completely wrong about that, which is to me personally kind of weak writing.
Yeah, and like James said, I actually sort of like that scene. So what's pretty much happening is that Ruby has an old VHS CCTV video of her being left. It's not even of her being left on the church. It's just of the road at the time.
And it's funny because, as they mentioned in the episode, it sounds like it's some fairy tale. Her being left as a baby in a church during Christmas time with the carolers singing. But this puts it into perspective. It's fucking 2004. And out of the times we've seen that scene, I know we've known it isn't old in the 80s or the 70s or even earlier. It just feels like it. And there's kind of a shock to me. We were born in 1993. 2004, we would have been over 10 years old.
Yeah, out of interest, wasn't it like New Year's Eve of 2004 that like the Doctor runs into Rose and, hey, you're going to have a good year next year?
I think it had to have been, yes. Because I believe it was right before this Tau did the Advancers, and that was, I think, yeah, it's in the date of 2005. So, I mean, it might have been like right on the cusp, right after midnight. But, yeah. So, somewhere else in the UK, that was happening. And think about this was, I'll always bring this up. This was 2 years after the potential race rides between the White Wolves and the, what was it, Black Lightning.
Yeah, I believe so.
And that is a reference, if you haven't listened to it, to the Film Mongers, a Big Finish audio, which took place 2002. Again, this is an interconnected universe. For me, it's personally fun to think about these connections. But continuing on with this one, you were saying?
Yeah, I thought the whole scene was solid because they go to Ruby's home for the videotape. Ruby's mother decides to go with Ruby to unit headquarters, mainly because Rose went with Ruby and Rose mentioned Donna being there. And Carla, Ruby's mother, thinks, well, if you and your mother can be involved in unit, I might as well go over too. Naturally, she's worried about her daughter. Oh, not even her daughter, but effectively her daughter. So she gets Mrs. Flood to sort of stay with her mother at Cherry. She's like James said, that old woman who just wants some tea. She seems like a nice woman, by the way. We don't see her much, but I sort of like her. And it's a scene where like you sort of expect something to happen, but as soon as Ruby and Rose and Carla leave, Cherry asks for some tea, and Anita Dobson, Mrs. Flood, says like, well, we can't all get what we want all the time. And like James said, it's not easy to tell if she's quote unquote being threatening or maybe just being vaguely ominous. It's hard to say. Well, it's certainly a striking line. So you can feel like a tonal shift. It's arguably creepy, I would say.
Oh no, I'd say it's totally creepy. And then she looks out the window slash basically looks right at the audience again. And there's a huge storm cloud coming in. And that must have been a slow rolling storm cloud because we actually never got a storm this episode. But she states directly to the camera, there's a storm coming in. He waits no more. Which is just so great. And again, she's looking right at the camera while saying this.
Yeah, and actually that leads in nicely to, I think, before we get to the grand reveal, one last thing I want to talk about is the time window. It's this technology that Yune has to sort of, how do you even describe it? Like sort of take a photograph of like something that happened in the past. That's not even the best description. It's like a holographic image of a past event, but it's not particularly. They have a bunch of power behind it, like nuclear energy, but it's not. It's still not particularly strong.
No, because I'm sure something this would be extremely complicated. I'm actually kind of disappointed there wasn't just. I only wanted a single line because Kate Manson's when the doctor asks, "Oh no, it's against unit policy to mess with anything related to time travel," and the doctor's like, "Yeah, that's nice. So where's the time window?" And she's like, "Oh, it's 10 stories down." So she doesn't exactly try to deny it for very long. And it's not like the doctor would have believed it. But I was hoping there would be one line after the doctor sighed, and when he sighed, he just made fun of it, of course. But I was hoping that there would have been one line where he got serious for a second and said, "Seriously, though, you can't do this stuff." It would have been nice. I know he trusts you in it, but this is fucking dangerous. And apparently they have, at least the way that I hold the conversation, they have lost people before when it comes to this holographic kind of time travel. So I don't know. I was hoping for something like that, but I guess other things kind of did happen.
Yeah, and this time window scene, I think it's sort of cool. It sort of ties into the whole, hey, why does Ruby make it snow thing? Sort of. I mean, we still don't know why, but that's probably going to be a next episode thing.
If not even longer, honestly.
Yeah, that's true. But there's also a point about Ruby sort of being within the time window, James. I think that you wanted to touch on. I also know it too, but I think it was one of the things you brought up.
Yeah, no, on the whole, I quite like the scene, especially the second half of it. I thought it was very ominous. Just the way that woman looks when they literally couldn't get a picture of her face. They tried, everybody was looking, they literally had cameras. This is literally the best chance anyone has of seeing what Ruby's mother looks like. And none of their technology can get anything. None of their eyes can see anything. Because as the doctor says, it looks like she's intensely darkened within the memory itself, within the time window itself. The doctor says something to the fact that she's never seen anything like this before, which we keep seeing in connection to Ruby. So I hope to how Russell Davis has some ideas on this, because he bought a deliver. But what annoyed me about this was, again, on the whole, I quite like this scene. But when the doctor brought Ruby into the time window and also another sorcerer who was there just for safety reasons, and they are supposed to just stand still and watch the, I don't even know what to call it, the memory, because it's basically them in the past. They can't be seen, and they're watching it happen, which is made stronger by the fact that they have a VHS tape to help with some of the stuff that otherwise would take up too much energy, like the snow, for example. I thought that was actually kind of clever. Of course, once they can't get a clear look at Ruby's mother's face, Ruby gets out this truck because she knows this is literally the only chance of finding anything out. And so she starts resisting the doctor and she wants to move closer to the woman who is supposedly her mother, or who is her mother. And the doctor is saying, "No, you can't do this." And I'm thinking, what did you think was going to happen? This is going to be Ruby in one of her most emotional states. Of course she is going to move. Frankly, as far as I'm concerned, I see no reason for her to be inside the window at all. Let her watch from the outside. Let the doctor, who will stay as safe as he can, watch this happen. Now, maybe the doctor wanted her eyes from the inside, so in case, for some reason, he was able to see the face, that she would be able to see the face, and maybe she would recognize the nose or something. I don't know. But it annoyed the hell out of me that the Doctor, and I guess really everybody in unit, thought that, yeah, she was just going to remain unemotional during this, when obviously she wasn't.
Yeah, and it's one of those sort of annoying things you sometimes see. Like James said, of course, this is going to be Ruby at one of her most emotionally vulnerable moments.
I mean, even if she had seen her mother's face, she still would have gotten emotional. So really, it's lose-lose either way.
Yeah, and it's just one of the things that, again, sort of annoying. Maybe one of the more annoying scenes in the episode. But like James said, the overall sequence was decent. And plus, we saw this. I don't even know. This creepy mist, shadowy entity type thing. So that was playful too.
Yeah, basically, the TARDIS was there in the past because, of course, the Doctor was there in the past. This is during the Andor excursion goblins. I believe the Unifier was.
Yeah.
That was pretty funny. And so, of course, the TARDIS was in fact there. The Doctor reiterates that his memory of this seems to change, and this was the one interesting thing in Space Babies, when he remembers back to this, and then he remembers the woman turning around and pointing at him. And this woman in this veiled cloak thing looks creepy as fuck. Literally, every time they're on screen, we don't see anything but the veil and how they look. It's not so much a veil, but you can't see anything. And then she's just pointing, and it's creepy. I don't know, something about it is just very annoying to me. And the TARDIS, of course, was there, and then we see the TARDIS leave because the Doctor leaves in the TARDIS. For a second, my brother and I were wondering, wait, while the Doctor's dealing with the Goblin King, does Ruby's mother take the TARDIS?
Yeah, I was thinking like in the Back to the Future 2 type thing. Like when Doc and Marty sort of leave the DeLorean, Biff gets it for a bit, and I was wondering if there's something like that, which I think would have been sort of cool.
Yeah, could you imagine the look on the Doctor's face if he found out that had happened?
Yeah, I think that would have been an interesting way to go, but that's not to say the way they went was interesting too. But I was just
Yeah,
thinking what different solutions they could have gone with.
Yeah, no, but the way they went is, so the Doctor leaves in the TARDIS, but then, after the Doctor leaves, the TARDIS somehow comes back. And during all of this, everybody was saying, hey, the TARDIS looks more real in this memory slash time window than anything else does, more solid as it were. And yeah, I just thought the whole sequence on the whole was quite interesting, very fascinating. I really think UNIT needs to get rid of this technology because it's way too fucking dangerous for them to have.
Yeah, it's possible there's just so many things going on in the Doctor's mind that that's a conversation he wanted to have with Kate, but it's possibly after he pretty much causes the death of wonderful people. He's like, oh, maybe now's not the best time.
Yeah, now would not have been the best time. She was really unhappy about that. And she had just finished telling the Doctor, you don't bring death, you bring joy.
Well, that's really bad timing, too.
That was kind of hilarious that, 20 minutes after she tells the Doctor that, she's royally pissed. And I know that in the end she doesn't probably quite blame the Doctor, but it's probably in the back of her mind.
But with all of that said, I think it, and obviously, I imagine you've all seen the episode. We all know who the big bad reveal is at the end.
I can't believe they brought the Macra back this way.
Well, I know. And the Macra is something I've been a fan of ever since, well, naturally, ever since the Macra tear. It had such character back then, and so
it was nice to see them in Carlo.
Was indeed. But with that said, it may actually not be the Macra. Although it is indeed something from Classic Who, James.
Yeah, we get, and people were speculating about this, and it's kind of funny. This is, out of all the fan theories they did at the beginning of this episode with the Doctor coming to UNIT, they were like, oh, that's an anagram for TARDIS. Oh, maybe Susan tried this actually my granddaughter Susan, which is what fans have been saying all this time. The one thing they don't talk about that actually happens to be true is the theory on Sutak. And lo and behold, we get the amazing. The ending of this was so good. Again, I didn't really like the first half, but the ending was so good and excellent. We get the return of Sutak, of course, from the other classic Fourth Doctor story, Pyramids of Mars. And again, people have been suspecting this, and even I was hoping. But the funny thing is, that as much as I was hoping for Sutak's return, and I thought, oh, that would be really cool, because I really like the theories people were having for it, I must admit, while I was watching the episode, and even as the reveal was happening, I was thinking it's possibly because of a comment that Kaola had made earlier in the episode. Maybe it's going to be the Beast returning from the Impossible Planet on the Scented Pit. I thought it was going to be the Devil or the Beast or whatnot. And I thought that would have been kind of cool. It's a pretty popular story, maybe one of the best ones in season 2 of the revival. But no, Roger D. Davies isn't messing around. He brings back Sutak, and it was just... I was as big a fan of the design on the whole, but the speech Sutak gives as he's revealing himself, this is kind of an enveloping mist around the TARDIS. The Doctor's not even in the room. He's trying to interact with Susan Tratt's character. And so he's just hearing this over the radio while Kate's just watching this mist around the TARDIS start to thicken. And he gives this amazing speech about, before the trickster, before the toy maker, and just a grandiose thing. And we have the glorious return of Sutak to Doctor Who. And it's hard for me to explain how much I enjoy this moment, honestly. It really is. But the funny thing is that even as much as people were theorizing about it, at this moment, until the reveal, I kind of forgot that. Oh yeah, I was thinking and hoping there's going to be Sutak. I was just so wrapped up in the reveal that I forgot one of my biggest hopes of the series. So I guess that's pretty good writing. I don't know, either that or I have bad memory.
Yeah, and I think honestly, Pyramids of Mars, we've probably seen it a handful of times. I have to admit, I feel like I've probably only seen it at most 3 times, and it's been a long time. But naturally, that is one of the classics of Tom Baker's time. And I sort of wish they had gone with a more classic design. I sort of hope maybe in part 2 we'll see an allusion or reference to the more classic design. I guess we'll see. But just bringing Sutak back. And it's my understanding that I think he's appeared in probably some books or audios or stuff like that. But this is his first appearance in the actual mainline show, Sans Pyramids of Mars, which I think was back in 1975.
Yeah, I think, and I know this because I found enough looked it up about 3 months ago or so because I was interested in something I saw. But he turned up. I'm not going to say everything, but he turned up in Big Finish. I think in season 2 of the Returning Adventures of Bernice Summerfield, something along those lines. And it was, well, you know how Big Finish does things. There's a box set of 4 stories, and it was the return of Sutak, voiced by the original Sutak voice actor Gabriel Wolf, who in fact came back for this episode and voiced Sutak. I'm assuming this was recorded maybe it's last year. Either way, he's 91 now. So at best, maybe it's recorded when he was 90, but he's really up there in years, and yet the same actor who voiced him back in 75 for Pyramids of Mars comes back and voices him again, which I think is just amazing. And also a fun fact, and honestly this is a fact I think I knew at one point then forgot, Gabriel Wolf, the voice actor for Sutak, is also the voice actor for the aforementioned Beast from the Impossible Planet / the Scented Pit, which, again, I think I knew once, I forgot, and hearing that now, and in fact with the references to the Beast in this episode as well, make me wonder, maybe, I don't know, long in the future, Sutak kind of just changes over time and becomes the Beast. I don't know, either way, I think it was kind of amazing that it's actually the same voice actor. And it works so well.
Yeah, and I agree. That's probably something that I knew too that I probably heard back in the day. But that was sort of a nice surprise, sort of. It's a nice dialogue too at the end. Gives a little speech, and we just like the speech at the end with actually references to some classic things also, such as the Mara, which is a classic Who an antagonist entity we saw in 2 Fifth Doctor stories, being Kinda and Snake Dance. Who was it? Tegan had a great time with it.
Oh yeah, Tegan loved the Mara.
Reference to the Trickster, which is an entity I recognize. Who doesn't recognize a Trickster? But I've never actually watched that many episodes of Sarah Jane Adventures, so I've actually not seen the Trickster in all of its glory.
You're gonna love it.
Naturally, the Maestro was mentioned, as was the Toymaker. and also what possibly could be a reference to the gods of Ragnarok.
Yeah, this one I'm not as sure about, but I saw enough individuals posting on Twitter and Reddit after the episode mentioned it that I thought we'll just throw it in. Again, not convinced, but and I don't have the exact line in front of me, which is probably good because I was about to read all of it because it was that good of a speech. Who knew that Sutak was such a good speechwriter? I guess he's probably been practicing for a while. But there was a mention of three gods of envy and malice and hate or something. And a lot of people were like, hey, three people, is that the gods of Ragnarok from Greatest Show in the Galaxy? And I hope they have more than that. Maybe they don't, I don't know. But either way, perhaps a reference to them as well. And they did seem pretty powerful from the one time I saw that story.
Yeah, and that one, like James said, it might be a bit of a stretch. But hey, if you're referencing things like Lamara and you're bringing back Sutak, who's to say Gods of Ragnarok can't have something too? It's a shame that Fanrik was left out of it. And, well, naturally, it's a shame the macro weren't mentioned more. But
The funny thing is that obviously I was really hoping for Fanrik to be the one who waits, not Sutak. And spoilers, I suppose it's basically confirmed Sutak was the one who waits in this episode. And I was just really hoping for Fanrik. Maybe we'll get the Fanrik Mansion next pout. I don't know. I agree. I really like Fanrik, and I would like some representation for Fanrik. Samuel. Maybe it'll be something next season. I don't know. Fingers crossed. One thing that my brother noticed and that I didn't really pay that much attention to was when the TARDIS makes this type of groaning sound. And apparently it's done this on and off this season. Again, I haven't really noticed. I know it apparently happened once in the Davos Court people were talking about. But the thing is that people are talking about a lot of other things. I really haven't seen all that much discussion until today about, oh, that TARDIS was growing. What, you didn't notice it? There's reference right in the episode. And the answer is no, I didn't notice it because there's other things happening in the episode. It was such a throwaway thing. Hey, Doctor, what's the sound that TARDIS is making? Hey, I don't know. Let's go on. My heart's been too full of things like Mrs. Flood and Ruby's mother, which we still got absolutely no answers to yet. Perhaps next episode. And who is Susan Trisk's character? And who is the one who waits? And who is all in the Pantheon? No, I didn't catch on to the fact that the TARDIS has been making a noise. Sorry, guys. I don't think it makes me an unobservant watcher, but apparently when that noise was happening, well, Michael, you just kind of noticed it, and you were like, hey, that's happened before.
yeah, and it's something that other people would probably have more information than I would. Because I think it sort of happened in Rogue, and I know it happened some previous time too, somewhere, perhaps in the Davos Court. It's just one of those small things that really there was never a bunch of attention paid to, but it did ring a bell to me. I sort of recognized it, but like James said, there's far more interesting things in the episode than just some random noise that TARDISes might make.
And just a small thing, I thought this is quite interesting. There was a character who was introduced in this episode, a member of UNIT, just called Harriet, and I quite enjoyed her on the whole. She didn't really do much. She was just a small unit. I don't want to say secretary because that's probably unfair to her. But I don't remember what her actual role was. But she was kind of around during most of the episode, during most of the parts that were taking place in UNIT. And again, it was such a good ending because the Doctor was, all these pieces were flying together. And the Doctor remembered that kid way back in the Maestro episode. I don't know, the eights. Honestly, I don't even remember the Doctor meeting them. But maybe it's just more of a reference. But somebody said, and I don't remember honestly who, maybe it was Harriet when she was possessed, but the gods like to create harbingers, and I'm mispronouncing that word, but I'll roll with it, for their arrival, as we saw Maestro did that at the beginning of the Davos Court. And again, there's such a good reveal because Harriet's possessed, and then the Doctor screams, I think it was the Doctor, says, what's her last name? And her last name is Albinger, and her name is H. Albinger. So I just thought that was such a nice reveal. Again, the ending was just so good to me. It really made up again for the beginning, which I wasn't really feeling.
Yeah, I'll say, as far as I'm concerned, there were elements at the beginning that just felt a bit like they were moving a bit quickly. But generally speaking, I had a decent time with it. like there were some scenes that were maybe more annoying than not. I don't know. I had a pretty good time. I thought the ending was pretty fun, like James said. Who doesn't like Sutak coming back? And I know there are probably some fans who maybe just don't know who Sutak was. Maybe they haven't spent that much time with Pyramids of Mars. But it's just great to see such a classic antagonist return. And I do hope the next episode does some additional justice to Sutak.
I'm really looking forward to tying in as much to this next one. I'm really not going to like the pouch with Ruby as much, although I'm sure they're going to try to tie a lot of that in. Because I'm sorry, but I don't find her legend, as they say, all that interesting. She was abandoned as a child, and she wants to know who her mother is. I'm sorry, calling me cold-hearted. I don't care. I find Sutak inherently more interesting. I find the mystery of Mrs. Flat, who may very well be, in fact, the mystery mother of Ruby, I find her also much more interesting. Because unlike most of the other things we've seen, I guess we've seen a bit from the Doctor in The Dallas Code, but Mrs. Flat is inherently aware of the fourth wall. And we haven't seen that again these last 6 episodes, so it's interesting to see. I don't think Sutak is for as much as Avgati is, but I don't know, maybe we'll find out next episode. Another small thing I liked, and this is just, again, one of those really small things, I liked all of the scenes with Susan Triad. When we actually meet the, I guess, main, perhaps, body of Susan Trist's character, she's actually quite charming. Yeah, she's probably a bit privileged, especially nowadays, although I think she had a poor upbringing, I forget the specifics. But she's kind of charming. She's just a nice woman, honestly. Even Mal was surprised. She said Mal was undercover spying on her for UNIT. And she was saying, one of the biggest surprises is that Susan's just nice. And I thought that was kind of funny. I thought there's a very different... A lot of people were thinking, maybe there's something malicious in her. But no, she was basically being used as a trap for the Doctor created by Sutak, because that's, I guess, how Sutak rolls. He who waits also plans a hell of a lot. And apparently she's been having bad dreams, and her dreams are all of the snippets we see as Susan, when we've seen Susan Trish in other episodes. She had dreams. The Doctor says, "Hey, Lindy." He sort of mentioned the slacks. Alas, he didn't. He said, "Hey, about Lindy, do you remember that?" And you can just see the look on her face of complete confusion, because this person who she doesn't know is just shouting dreams at her that she's had and that have been giving her restless nights. And I thought that was a very strong scene for that actress. I thought it was really well done.
Yeah, and again, I find it so funny that they reference some off-screen adventures in which they see Susan Trist's face, and in both of the ones that we happen to see, it's like sort of alienish or roboticist. Like, obviously, there's more trying to do a whole episode with that type of, I guess, look would probably be more difficult to just through some additional special effects and makeup on the face. So I sort of thought that was sort of funny. Throughout the season, we've always been wondering exactly what's been going on with Susan Trist, and it's sort of fun that we see that all the things that we've seen throughout the season, she sort of experiences through dreams. And I don't know, I enjoyed it. The ending naturally was a pretty good cliffhanger. I mean, not only do we get a good speech, we have Kate trying to deal with what they're dealing with in the unit headquarters. We have the Doctor and Ruby dealing with a former Sutak in the form of a Susan Trish. So I don't know, there's a lot of things going on.
Actually, it was the Doctor and Mal, because Ruby is at unit headquarters.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah. So there's like a bunch of things going on, and naturally, every good cliffhanger should have you wondering what's going down in the next episode. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
And one last thing before we give our final thoughts on this, I suppose. And I meant to mention this earlier, so I'll just throw it in now, because I don't know if it's a novel idea. Maybe people are talking about it. I try to not read too much before we have our discussions, because I don't want to accidentally parrot anybody. But I was wondering if during the scene where we see Ruby's mother pointing, and during the scene the Doctor has the soldier who he brought into the time window, he had the soldier go try to look at the direction that she was pointing. Because they were saying, oh, maybe she's pointing at the TARDIS, or maybe she's pointing at the Doctor, maybe she's pointing a bit more northwest. And the soldier can't really see anything. There's kind of maybe a movement in the forest. That's really hard to tell. But I got a really cool thought, or maybe Michael did. I forget actually which one of us did. But I got a really cool thought that maybe Susan's mother was pointing at the soldier basically through time, that she could see or she could sense the soldier was there. And I have no idea if that's what it is. They didn't answer that, so I'm sure they will in fact answer it. I don't think they're going to raise the question without answering. But I just thought that would have been a really cool and again really creepy thing, a very creepy reveal to go with, and that just came to my mind while watching it. And fingers crossed, maybe that is where they're going. I don't know, but you hold the hill first, guys. Maybe.
Yeah, and I think, like I said earlier, I generally had a decent time with the episode. Like, I didn't think the first half was uninteresting. There was a bunch of things going on throughout. Obviously, the things I'm most interested in included the whole Susan Trish thing and the Mrs. Flood thing. And really, with Mrs. Flood, we only got like sort of teasers of what's to come. I wouldn't be surprised if it turned out Mrs. Flood was Susan, but we'll find out. So I'm always curious about that. And yeah, generally, I thought it was. I mean, it wasn't like an amazing episode, but I do think it was decently strong, and I look forward to see how they'll sort of finish it off.
Yeah, funnily enough, as much as I really like the ending again, I think the ending is one of the strongest parts of the last 20 minutes or so when all these pieces are falling together. And in fact, this might be one of the first ones of this season I just rewatch automatically. I might just start rewatching after this recording's done, because there were things about it that really interested me. I did really like how the Doctor's acting at the beginning. He always has this kind of happy-go-lucky feel to him on the whole, and I'm not that type of personality, so that can actually kind of grate on me. So, and something about his voicing is so exuberant compared to other Doctors. I'm not sure what it is. Either way, kind of annoyed me at the beginning, because he's saying, "Oh, we also heard you look at Ruby too," and he has all these pictures up of Ruby, and Ruby doesn't know the Doctor's going to do this. I don't know. The Doctor can bother me a bit, but I did actually love I like the Sutak part of the cliffhanger, and I liked almost all of it except the part where the woman's reaching to give the Doctor the gift of death. Because let's be real, how is it going to start next episode? The Doctor's going to move away. Yes, right now he's in shock. Now, some people are theorizing, hey, there's going to be a Tales of the TARDIS in the memory TARDIS. And I think we even know that some of the characters in that. I try not to look at these things. I've just heard it. And that maybe this will almost be required veering, because let's be honest, the memory TARDIS, it's going to be the story Pyramids of Mars. Obviously. I think that's beyond dispute now. So maybe that's going to tie in, and maybe something like that, he'll get away in a memory TARDIS with Ruby and Maul, and then be able to relax. I don't know. It would be strange for it to connect so much, especially when those aren't legally available in the US. They only air on a British app thingy. You can find all the book ons on YouTube for the Tales of the TARDIS if you haven't. And I think most of them are really touching. I think you should watch them. Yeah, I don't know how intertwined it's going to be. I can't imagine they make something that is required viewing for part 2. It's something only available in the UK. I don't believe for a second that's likely to happen. I don't quite know how they're going to play it off. Honestly, I thought maybe about the ending of this episode, and maybe this would have been way too brutal. But could you imagine if the possessed Susan Triad, if she had touched and disintegrated Maul before approaching the Doctor, and we just see Maul slowly dying because Sutak's finally back and he's getting, maybe not revenge, that's probably too petty for him, what he would say it is. But could you just imagine seeing the death of Maul after her return, and how traumatized the Doctor would be to see that in front of him?
Yeah, I mean, that would certainly raise his takes a bit.
Not only would it raise the stakes, like, the fandom would, no, man, they would explode worse than when they saw that one facing the Rogue episode. No. That part of the cliffhanger I didn't laugh, but certainly the Sutak speech, absolutely brilliant, and it was just so good, and I really liked all of that. So kudos for writing that. But overall, I don't think it's an episode that's going to go down as the best episode ever, but certainly the ending is so good that I overlook some of the things he didn't like at the beginning, because the ending was just so strong. I think maybe one of the best cliffhanger endings we've had. I'm not going to take the time now. I can't imagine when the last one we've had this good was. Maybe it was Under the Lake before the flood, without actually looking at the list. Because that was a howl of a cliffhanger at the end of Under the Lake.
Yeah, but this one was naturally pretty good. But as always, that is just our thoughts. And if you have anything you'd like to say about this one, as always, you can reach out to us on either Twitter/X at Brothers Mahoney, or you can leave a comment down below. And as always, this has been the Brothers Mahoney. I'm Michael.
And I'm James.
We thank you very much for listening. We hope you enjoy your night.